Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Lianas Senior Transition Support, specialists in downsizing and seniors' residences.
Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. Matt Delvecchio here, specializing in life transitions, downsizing in the senior living industry.
And I'm Corrie Sirota, clinical social worker and the author of Someone Died, Now What? Welcome, everyone, to our segment on helping moms and dads. I like to say, AKA the sandwich generation. So you're dealing with your senior parents, you're dealing with your kids who may be young adults or little ones still at home. What a challenge we have. So our goal is to help families cope with the challenges of either the aging process, and today, in this case, with parents. And today's guest is no exception. So I'm going to hand it over to Matt to introduce our very well-known guest.
Yes, looking forward to this. And, are we properly planning to age well? And there's so many different opinions because it's so personal. So we thought we'd bring in an expert to get some helpful words of advice. We have Stephanie Erickson. She's the author of the award-winning book called Plan for Aging Well. She's got a master's degree in social work, and she's a certified Alzheimer's disease and treatment specialist. And Stephanie's founded Erickson Resource Group. It's a clinical practice focusing on seniors and their families and decision-making capacity assessments for legal proceedings. Actually quite important. And as a family caregiving expert, she's hosted several caregiving web series and provides commentary on television, radio, and social media throughout the U.S. and Canada. Yes, Stephanie is all over the place. Stephanie, welcome back to Life Unrehearsed.
Thanks, Matt, for having me. Hi, Corrie. Nice to speak with you as well.
Yeah, so Stephanie, we really appreciate when you come on, such knowledge that you provide us. And let's, I guess, begin with, why is it so important to start planning now?
Well, I think all of us have a tendency in so many areas of our life to plan in advance, whether we're going on vacation or even with, Montreal traffic, opening our Waze app to see what's going to be the fastest way to get there and avoid traffic. And we know that when we put in a bit of effort on the front end and plan in advance, we can avoid some of those crises and traps that we might fall into along the way. And the aging journey is no different. And when families plan in advance, think about the type of care and support they would want as they're aging, the role that their family members will play in that, the financial pieces around that, and other types of care and support. When they think about that in advance and then share that with their family, they are more likely to have exactly what it is they want as they age.
God, I hear you. I'm like, you're like, how many people do the Waze thing and my hand's going up, but you can't see that. So I had to tell you that my hand's going up. But I want to ask you, in that, where do families go wrong in supporting older adults?
Well, the list is long, but it's also long in a very positive way. And I want to start there. The things that families do right is love and try their best to do everything that they can. So whenever we're talking about what goes wrong, I know I'm not at all trying to imply that people don't have the best intentions. I think it's just a lack of awareness or experience, and that's where the mistakes happen. But I do think that as long as we are leading our efforts with love, we will always end up in a good place. But to answer your question, I think that the part that most families forget about is that we are a whole being. We're not just a physical body. So we need more than just a place and a bed to lay our head at night and someone to help us perhaps stand up and get in the shower if we need that kind of care later in our days. We also need people to attend to our soul and to our emotional and psychological parts of us as well. Those areas in our life are just as essential. And I think that's what's often overlooked, not only by family members, but often by professionals.
So true. The old oxygen mask on the airplane. You do have to take care of yourself as well. We're talking to Stephanie Erickson. Stephanie's a caregiving expert, and we're talking about aging well. And Stephanie, as you know, the role of caregiver is challenging, and so often Corrie and I hear in our worlds about it, how difficult it is to navigate the healthcare system. In fact, next Saturday's show, we're having someone from the CLSC to help navigate us the system. But from your perspective, because you are so involved with the healthcare system and the challenges that caregivers are facing, can you just provide us with some helpful tips to effectively navigate our healthcare system?
I think we need to be able to ask for help and to verbalize what it is that we don't know. I think often we think that we might have the answers and then find ourselves in a situation where we don't, and then we don't know where to go. So I think approaching a situation always with a learning angle in mind as a student, okay, let me learn about everything that I need to know about this, can be really helpful. I also think one of the questions when I give people a tip is whenever you're leaving any appointment or you're speaking with any professional out there, when you're done with that conversation or that face-to-face contact, make sure you ask, if there's an emergency, who do I call? Is there an email? Is there a phone number? Is there a hotline? How do I get in touch with you? So I think we always need to figure out, where do we go if there's an emergency, because we forget to ask that. And then also, in order to make this visit more efficient, the next time is ask, is there a place that I can email my questions in advance, fax my questions, whatever it is, in advance, so that the doctor or whoever the professional is aware of what my major concerns are, so he or she can be a bit prepared, and it makes that actual meeting, that visit, more efficient, and the healthcare professionals will appreciate that efficiency, and you'll probably get even better service.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love the way you're putting this out to everyone. It's clearly why you are the expert. What I hear is a prevention, being proactive. That's what I hear. And that follows right in line with your plan for aging well, your book, which is an award-winning book. You talk about the term team caregiver. What does that mean, and why is it so important?
Well, no one can do anything alone, right? I mean, all of us need somebody. We need people. We need help. And when I talk about the concept of team caregiving, I like to have people visualize a football team and a football organization. There are hundreds of people involved in making an organization work of that depth. And I think when we talk about caregiving, it's the same kind of thing, is that we're all a team. There's a quarterback, a head coach, there's the offensive and defensive coordinator. There's all of these different roles, and no one can work in isolation. If we don't communicate that plan with the rest of the team, the other coaches, the organizational heads, the actual players, the special teams, if we're not communicating that plan on an ongoing basis and adjusting that plan with all of the players and key players, not just the players on the field, but the key players of the team, then it's not going to be that effective. And so a team is really about all of the healthcare professionals. It's the patient and the caregiver at the helm. They're the ones leading it. And then all of the other professionals underneath have to make sure that they also are informed of that plan and following through.
We're talking with caregiving expert Stephanie Erickson here on Life Unrehearsed. And Stephanie, although you are now officially a Montrealer, not surprising to get that football analogy coming from California and a big LA Rams fan. Absolutely. She got in the Go Rams before I even could say it, Corrie. So good. We have to head out to traffic, Stephanie. But when we come back, really, it's becoming an even deeper question these days about meeting the needs of older adults, and we have to do a lot better. We'd love to get your take on it, but first let's head out to the CJAD Traffic Center with a traffic update.
Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Lianas Senior Transition Support, specialists in downsizing and seniors residences.
We are talking to caregiving expert Stephanie Erickson about aging well. Steph, I know you have a wealth of knowledge around all of this, so I'm going to ask you some effective ways that we could be better meeting the needs of older adults.
Well, I think we talked about it on the first half before the break, is being proactive is really the key. So in any area that you're looking to support an older adult, you want to always be proactive. So if you're thinking about safety in the home, you want to be proactive and have that home evaluated with, your aging loved one in the home to see how they're moving about mobility within the home, and put some, safety measures in place to prevent a fall, which could then prevent other problems. If you're looking at, transitioning, working with someone like Matt in advance to kind of find out what's out there, what are the costs, what could I need in the future, what would that look like, and share that information with the family. So no matter what area you're looking at, I think being proactive is the key, and then being transparent with your family and sharing that information, because the older adult may have all of their own ideas in their mind, but if they're not sharing that with their family, then it means nothing. And then to take it a step further, if they're not putting those wishes and desires and needs down in writing in a legal document, then the family's going to have a really hard time implementing things.
Yeah, so true, Stephanie. In your book, Plan for Aging Well, an award-winning book, I might add. It's a wonderful book. I've read it. You talk about something very interesting. It's called the Aging Pocketbook. Can you explain?
Yeah, well, I mean, Matt, you would know in the world of transition how expensive housing can be out there if we need to pay privately. And I think one of the things that people forget about it is there's more than just housing that one needs to pay for as they get older when they're not receiving the same kind of income because they're not working anymore. There's things like, medication that you might need, equipment that you might need. You might need actual physical bodies, care support workers to come into the home. You might want, additional services such as someone like Corrie to come in and do some, grief and loss counseling as the person's life is changing and they're losing loved ones. You might want them to work with a therapist like Corrie. All of these extra things cost money. And so, again, people aren't necessarily thinking holistically as they're planning on all the different areas that we might require some financial assistance and support, and not putting that plan into place and not working with someone who's a specialist to help them understand and put those plans into place long term.
Thanks for the plug there, Steph. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're a great counselor, Corrie. For grief and loss, you're the woman.
She's the go-to.
I appreciate it. So thank you. I actually want to ask you something. As I'm listening to the interview, I looked at Matt and I said to him, this is all great, but I'm sure it has come to your experience where there's a senior. What do you do with the senior who just refuses to take caregiver help?
Well, that happens constantly, and I'm going to be one of those people. I'm going to tell my kids, back off.
Right.
I've got it under control, and I really kind of, appreciate the chutzpah that people have. Corrie, you know that word, Matt, you probably know too, that people have in being strong and determined and assertive with what it is that they want. We need to respect that. There is something that needs to be looked at is, does the person understand the decision that they're making, cognitively, or are they having other issues, memory losses and stuff that are interfering with their ability to make decisions? So that's one angle. And if that's been determined that the person is competent, then in the end, you kind of have to step back and let your loved one sort of fall into that crisis place, because we can't force anything on anybody, and people have the right to make decisions that aren't in their best interest. And I think the more that we can show some compassion and understanding that it's not easy to take that step and allow people into your home, or to say, yes, I need help, I'm having trouble. And if we can just, look at this with like a compassionate lens, I think that we can support a person in a slow pace, that eventually they'll feel safe to then turn around and say, you know what, I think you may be right in this area. I'm willing to try at least a small type of an intervention to see how it goes before we go to the whole kit and caboodle that you're suggesting.
Yeah, we see that so often, don't we, Stephanie, in our world, and we've got stubborn parents, and God bless them. They wouldn't have then been so successful maybe if they weren't so stubborn, but it's always best, and they're parents, they're humans, and they want to be treated with respect. So let's not tell them what they have to do. Let's have some compassionate conversations and understanding conversation, bring them into the conversation, and also look for some trigger events that may have happened maybe to another family member, or something has happened at home to open up that dialogue. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed with Matt and Corrie, and we're talking to caregiving expert Stephanie Erickson. Stephanie, along those lines, with these difficult conversations, we've talked about mom or dad refusing help. What about siblings? And so often siblings aren't on the same page. And what would you suggest for siblings to come together a little bit more for the sake of mom and dad?
So you're having me on next week to answer that question fully, right? God, Matt, I can't answer that question in 2 minutes. But I think, just to go backwards again and talk about being proactive, is that the parent, the older adult, should already have communicated what it is that they want, and communicated that evenly amongst all of their adult children. Because part of the conflict that comes between siblings is when one says, I want this for mom, and the other says, no, I want this, but
Yes.
nobody has actually understood or asked mom what she wants. So you really kind of have to go backwards to the older adult and say, what do you want? Communicate that with your children, put it in writing, and have a family conversation about it proactively, again, in order to prevent conflict down the road.
So true.
Yeah, you've already outlined that, and I hear it. It resonates with me. The piece about compassion. Ironically, yesterday I was listening to a conflict resolution seminar, and the speaker said, first thing is approach things with compassion. The second thing was to approach with curiosity. So what you spoke about in terms of maybe some of the questions you could be asking, whether it's, I guess, the senior adult. You have any suggestions for some of those questions?
Yeah, I love that you just said that, Corrie, and it's true, because if we go with an open mind, because we all want different things, right? So if you might say to your mom, you might say, Mom, I've noticed that you're having difficulty, let's just say, with your mobility in the home, and I'm worried about your safety. Do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you see that you're having any problems? If you don't see your problems, do you have an understanding as to what my concerns might be? What is your biggest fear about changes in your mobility as time goes on? What would you want in terms of support as time goes on if your mobility changes? So then, again, curiosity, you're asking your parent to share what it is that's top of mind for them, because once we know what their fears are and their concerns and their wishes, we can rally around them and help to deliver and execute on what it is they want.
So true. Stephanie, we're already out of time. We could be here for another hour. It's wonderful words of advice, as usual. We want to thank you very much. How can people get a copy of your book?
Amazon, Plan for Aging Well. My name's Stephanie Erickson. Go on to Amazon and you'll find it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
so much.
All right, that's caregiving expert Stephanie Erickson, and author of the award-winning book called Plan for Aging Well. All right, Corrie, what do we have next week?
We're going to talk about the top strategies to effectively navigate our healthcare system, and we'll also learn to help us understand planning and estate planning and settlement with the co-founder of Clear Estate. That's what it's called. The co-founder of Clear Estate, David Pisanu.
Yes, that's in fact, it's estate settlement and estate planning. So important for everyone. We're so happy to have David on the show next week. All right, thanks for tuning into Life Unrehearsed. And as a reminder, for all your inquiries or assistance with home care, seniors residences, or downsizing, it'd be my pleasure to help. Our services are completely free. So call me at Lianas Senior Transition Support, 514-622-8074, or lianasservices.com. Many thanks to our technical producer, Jimmy G, and you could listen to Life Unrehearsed here on CJAD 800 every Saturday at 3 p.m.